Welcome back to Fold in the Cheese. I am Ethan. I'm here with a special guest host today. You may remember him from last season as he filled in for Kemp a couple times. He is the Iron Man to my Spider-Man, the Tony Stark to my Peter Parker.
When's our next step? When's our next retreat? Like
what? Next mission?
Yeah, the missions.
We'll call you.
Well, did you have my numbers?
No, I mean we'll call you. Like someone will call you.
Oh,
all right.
From your team.
Okay.
That's not a hug. I'm just grabbing the door for you. We're not there yet.
Bye.
One Jason Thurston. What's going on, man?
Hey, here on the West Coast for a few days and very excited to talk about football.
On the West Coast. Okay, so we just had Monday night, the Chargers over there. You just feeling the buzz in LA? I mean, everyone loves the Chargers there. Everyone goes to the games. It's just this packed SoFi Stadium.
It is weird here. There are a few fans of the Chargers that I've met in the office this week, but mostly people are fans of UCLA, USC. No one really cares about the NFL here.
Which sucks because, one, they built this like spectacular new stadium, and the Rams obviously win the Super Bowl last year. The Super Bowl parade had like 6 people, and the Chargers are supposed to be good. So I can see why they're annoyed with them. It's like that team, they have these expectations, these great players, and yet they never are able to make that final push. So I get it from that side, but at the same point, like, come on, just like show up. It's always an away game for the home teams.
Yeah. When you have to go to the silent count at home when you're the Rams, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's sad. Because what was it last year when they were playing the 49ers? The Niners fans just kind of decked out the place. It was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. It's nuts.
Well, thanks, man. We appreciate you coming on, especially from the West Coast. So it's super early there. But as I like to say, when I was talking to you the other day, you said, I don't change to local time. I stay on my East Coast time. So that's a big time commitment. That's big time.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So, hey, real quick. So I know last season, when we did it, we had you on for a couple episodes. I think we were the Avengers last year. I think I was like Hawkeye. But anyway, I chose Spider-Man and Iron Man today because, they had that connection, that mentor-mentee relationship. And this will be the one time I will let you boast, just because, we're obviously in our neighborhood fantasy football league together. So I will let you boast this one time because you beat me in the championship last year. And in our one matchup so far this season, my one loss has come to you. So I'll give you your 15 seconds. Go right ahead. Here, go ahead.
As much as I'd like to talk about how I dominated you last year and this year in that league, I just took my first L to my wife, who has not won a game yet.
I saw that.
Yeah. So I can't really sit here and say how great I am when my wife just kicked the hell out of me. Thankfully, I'm here in a hotel room in Los Angeles versus being at home and having to hear about it. So hopefully by the time I get home Thursday night, she'll have forgotten about it. But I've sent no text. I sent no congratulatory anything. I know I'm going to hear about it all day though.
That's spectacular. But to your wife's credit, like her team is actually a really good team. They've just gotten such bad luck in the sense that I feel like everyone who has played her has had their best week. And just keeps piling up. So in her defense, her team is not 0-5 material. Well, now 1-5 material. So it's a fair loss to you. It's fair.
Yeah, I'll take it. I mean, if I can lose to anybody, it's certainly not going to be you. I'll take it to her.
That you're my one loss. It's so ridiculous. Like,
well, you'll have another. We'll play again.
No, we won't. I have Anyway, moving on. I told you I'd give you your 15 seconds. That was your 15 seconds. But then also kind of going back real quick. So I don't know about you. So growing up, I wasn't a huge comic book guy, but I was a huge, I always followed the X-Men, the Spider-Man, like all the cartoons and stuff. Because growing up, that was like my heyday. The 90s, the X-Men, Spider-Man cartoons were the best. And nothing has come close to them since. And I know you're a big comic book guy, and you've kind of instilled that to your kids, right? You guys have a tradition generally going downtown, picking one up or something?
We do. So, I went to the comic book shops with my dad as a kid, and I'd have my pulls and I'd go through the long boxes. And my kids really struggled to find something they like to read. And when Vault of Midnight opened in downtown Grand Rapids, I took them there. And they have been reading monsters ever since. And it started with comic books and graphic novels, and now they just can't stop. But it's kind of reinvigorated my love for comics because I got out of it for a long time. Now I've got, umpteen long boxes of comics in the house, and we go see all the Marvel movies and watch the Disney Plus shows. And my wife, again, probably doesn't really care to hear about this because she's tired of it. But we love it.
Nice. That's awesome. So yeah. So my daughter's into graphic novels now, but not like the comic book one. She's like sixth graders and Babysitters Club and stuff like that. So I'm hoping I can maybe throw a Civil War in there just to kind of see what happens.
Yeah.
But for me, also when I was growing up, I was big into like the X-Men cards. I would always go into the comic book shops and the sports card shop and get those packs of 94 X-Men Fleer Ultra, like spectacular. And I got the full set, and to this day, it is sitting in my closet in a binder as my retirement fund. So I'm
Nice.
hoping it's going to be worth tens of dollars.
Well, like any other retirement fund, it dipped for a long time, but I think during the pandemic, those cards really shot back up in value. Now, I don't know where they sit now that
Maybe
things
12.
are starting to, you might be at like 12 or 15. You've probably got enough for like lunch at Taco Bell.
Perfect. I'll take that. I'll take anything I can get at this point. But
Right.
all right. Enough about comic books, enough about reminiscing about your loss. We'll talk to maybe we'll get your wife on here next time. That might be a better interview for tomorrow, for Thursday. So
You
we'll
better get the
her
bleep
with
button
her.
ready.
But anyway, we've got to go into some week 6. So we did have some semi-big injury news coming up. Marquise Brown for the Cardinals, obviously their big acquisition, especially in the absence of DeAndre Hopkins. He went down with what they're saying is a pretty serious foot injury. So, I mean, surprisingly to me, he's been tearing it up down there. I didn't think he'd be doing this well. So that's kind of a big blow for them. And then did you see the trade they just made yesterday, though?
Yeah, credit to them for capitalizing on the dysfunction of the Carolina Panthers, right? I mean, when Robbie Anderson, who's probably your first or second best option other than Christian McCaffrey, gets kicked off the field for wanting to be on the field, and you give him away for a bag of balls. I mean, good on Arizona for going and grabbing him. I think he will be a nice compliment for when DeAndre Hopkins comes back too.
Yes.
So I really think Robbie Anderson's now going to be a relevant guy once again, because you can say what you will about Kyler. I think that he knows how to distribute the ball. I don't know if they know how to win, but he knows how to chuck it around the yard.
That's the key. They don't know how to win, but he can throw some stats. Like the thing with Robbie Anderson is he had that his first year in Carolina, he had over 1,000 yards, like 80 or 90 receptions. It was a good looking year. I made the mistake of drafting him last season based off that year, and he did absolutely nothing. And then obviously Carolina's just a dumpster fire right now, so everyone's going to be getting poached off that team. Be interesting to see if they start listening for Christian McCaffrey offers, but we'll see.
Hang on one second. Where do you think Christian McCaffrey should end up? Like from a fantasy perspective, where do you think makes the most sense for him?
From a fantasy perspective or from an NFL perspective?
For fantasy, that's what we're here to talk about, right?
Right. I mean, what would be spectacular is he went to Buffalo. Fantasy-wise, that would be absurd. Because you already have that high-powered, in the air offense. You get that running game. I mean, Devin Singletary, he's okay, but he's okay. He's not gonna put you over the edge. You get a Christian McCaffrey who can be the threat to run it, but then also catch it out the backfield like that. Game over. Buffalo wins the next 4 Super Bowls if he goes there.
Now, my counter to that was, what about the team they just played, Kansas City?
Kansas City. I mean, Edwards-Helaire has been looking better this year. I mean, he's starting to catch balls out the backfield, but I mean, you're right. He puts that over the top. The passing attack, I don't think is as dangerous as Buffalo, but for a fantasy perspective, I think, it would probably be better in Kansas City because he would kind of be more of like a Saquon Barkley where a kind of offense will run through him, as opposed to in Buffalo, where it's still going to go through Diggs and potentially Gabe Davis and McCaffrey. So I can see it from a why can I not say fantasy perspective?
You just did.
I did it. Hooray. Yeah, you're right. Probably Kansas City would be a bigger impact there.
Okay. Didn't mean to sidetrack us. All right, let's go back.
No, that's a good one because I have been kind of thinking about who's going to try and poach him. It's going to be one of those top contenders. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes. We're going back to some injuries. Dak says he's coming back. He's going to be playing your Lions in week 7. Is that good or bad? I mean, they were looking good with Cooper Rush. I was talking with Kemper that it was just kind of interesting. Once Cooper Rush came in, CeeDee Lamb has kind of been a disappointment from the second half of last season through, the beginning of this one when Dak was playing. But when Cooper came in, one of the big things I was saying, he's going to go to his guy. He's going to go to the top talent on the field because, he's the backup. He's not really expected to be too much. So why not just force feed your man? And that's exactly what happened. And obviously they went 4-1 with him as the starter. What do you think about Dak coming back? Is that going to change CeeDee Lamb?
So first off, I'd like to give some credit to the Chippewas quarterback, Cooper Rush. I'd like to see him play in Detroit, but You can start Dak. Dak will probably get knocked out by the third quarter, and we'll see Cooper anyway.
Okay.
Someone's gonna like smash their thumb on their helmet, and his thumb's gonna fall off, and that sleep number bed he sleeps in isn't gonna help it. So I think he will play, and I think if he doesn't get hurt, he'll probably torch us. I would expect Michael Gallup to have a big day too. And for those that stashed Michael Gallup at the beginning of the season, we're able to get him off of the
Kemper.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully Michael Gallup will continue to be strong because I have him on a couple of my teams.
There you go. Okay. And then kind of on the flip side, so here we have poor wide receiver play, but the one that was kind of doing something for Aaron Rodgers, Randall Cobb, goes down with a high ankle sprain. I mean, things just keep getting worse for the Packers. Their offense is looking terrible. Is someone going to finally step up? I mean, freaking Bob Tunyon had 12 targets last game.
You're not winning that way. He's got he being Rodgers has got to lean on these young guys, and I think Dobbs looks like a solid guy when given the opportunity. But the cupboard's bare. You get rid of Devontae Adams, you are not going to be as good. And now they're paying the price for it, right?
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to Rodgers wanting all the money. And I don't begrudge anybody for taking as much cash as you can get, especially in a league where you get this not knocked out of you every week. But
he just can't.
There's only yeah, exactly right. So that's why they had to go young at receiver, and now he's got to develop these guys. And him not being there in the offseason to work with these guys, again, it goes back to Rodgers. So we'll see. But I'd like to see Dobbs pick it up. I think he looks like.
Do you think he will be the guy?
There. That's who. If I'm picking a guy up there, that's him.
Okay. Moving to another quarterback in Pittsburgh. Who thought that the Bucs were going to lose to this team, especially when Kenny Pickett goes down? Now I know when you think, "Oh God, our hopes are dashed" when Kenny Pickett gets a concussion, but no one saw this game coming. But he'll be out for a little bit, at least through the protocols. But when you have a backup like Mitch Trubisky, I guess it's okay.
He's like backup pseudo. I don't know what you want to call him. He started. He went on the bench for like 2 seconds in a sandwich, and now he's back. But again, this goes back to Brady going, to hit Robert Kraft's party the night before and not going, again, not showing up for work. And the Tampa Bay Bucs realized that they lost when their quarterback isn't at practice. Practice matters, people. I mean, don't listen to Allen Iverson.
But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
We're talking about practice.
That's right. So your boy Brady is shirking his responsibilities to his team, and then you go and let a guy like Mitch Trubisky beat you.
Right. We'll kind of get into that, but I think what was so disappointing was the defense too, just living up those long drives, especially at the end of the game. But we'll get back to that in a second.
Sure.
Another quarterback, a stud, Carson Wentz, out 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured finger. Honestly, I think it's better that Taylor Heineke's coming in. It's Heineke time. Watch out. It's more of a exciting kind of play. I mean, I think Jeff Bezos owes us all millions of dollars for having to watch Bears Commanders. So the fact that Carson Wentz is out 4 to 6 weeks just adds to another crap show that is a Washington season. So
let me stop you there a second. I did not think much of Carson Wentz, and I don't think much of the Thursday night games. But what I did see in that Thursday night game, Carson Wentz laying Roquan Smith the F out on a crackback block. I loved that. That's football to me. When you see a linebacker and it doesn't have any relevance in fantasy whatsoever, but I thought Carson Wentz showed he's like a real quarterback going and knocking out one of the top 10 linebackers in the league. Yeah. Taylor Heinicke can't do that. If Roquan Smith hits him, Taylor Heinicke is a dead man. And then I don't know who you have behind Heinicke, but to your point though, I think Heinicke from a fantasy perspective will be probably more interesting. They've got a couple of weapons in. They got Dotson and they've got
McLaurin and Brian Robinson.
Yeah, exactly right. So it might be fun to watch, but like I said, I never was a big Carson Wentz fan until I endured that Thursday night game, and that was the only thing I took out of it was him destroy Roquan Smith.
So next time we got to see you in your Carson Wentz jersey.
They're going to be real cheap.
Yeah. And then in Baltimore, J.K. Dobbins left, misses second half again with his knee. They're going to test it this week, see if he can go. I mean, that thing is their running back room is just a mash unit. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how long he's going to be out, who's going to be the guy there. Is it Kenyon Drake? We'll talk about that kind of in notable performances. So those are kind of the biggest injuries this week. It's really been kind of rough this season already through 6 weeks. How many big time players have been out? Yeah, it's just bizarre. But as you said, that's football. That's football.
That's
All right, now just kind of going to go through a couple big time performances that happened this past week. So obviously the big game that everyone was waiting for was the Bills Chiefs, and the two quarterbacks lived up to it. It wasn't probably as high scoring as we all thought it was going to be, but still in the mid to high 20s. I mean, that's still a great game. And Allen 329 yards and 3 touchdowns. Mahomes had 338 and 2, although he did have those 2 interceptions, one late, which kind of sealed the game.
Oh, that killed it.
Yeah. Are they 1A, 1B? I mean, in the league, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's Buffalo and everybody else. I don't think that you can call Kansas City 1A because
I guess I was
Buffalo's
going
defense is quarterbacks. Even then, I would say Josh Allen's number one. You go back to what we talked about earlier. Josh Allen was kind of a shaky quarterback until you gave him weapons, right?
Yeah.
You took the weapon out of Minnesota and you send it to Buffalo, and Josh Allen looks really good. You give him good targets, he's going to be great. And that's, kind of what we were talking about Aaron Rodgers. You take away his good target, he's less great. So I think Josh Allen is awesome. And, I took in a league earlier, I was deciding between him and Herbert, who I still like quite a bit.
Right.
But now it's no debate, man. It's Josh Allen all the way. And everybody else is 2 and beyond.
Do you think he's coming into first round territory next season?
If he stays healthy and they continue to keep the weapons around him, if these Gabe Davises and all these McKenzie guys, if they continue to stick around, you keep that core together. And look, if you go back to if you get a Christian McCaffrey, right? Then yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Another stud quarterback, Joe Burrow, finally kind of rounding into form. Obviously, week 1 was just like, holy God. But he's finally coming back. 300 yards, 3 passing, and then 1 on the ground. Crazy enough, he's QB5 on the season. I think people kind of forgot about him. The fact that the Bengals have been struggling. Obviously, he struggled week 1 immensely. But he's QB5. I mean, are you on the Burrow train or what?
I love Joe Burrow. The problem is they don't put cameras in Cincinnati, so no one watches any games there because they don't have the internet. They don't have electricity. No one watches anything in Cincinnati. So when he goes away, that's when you get to see him, right? When you go down to New Orleans and he lights them up, you're like, oh, yeah, Joe Burrow's in the league. He's awesome. I mean, that guy plays great. I love his attitude. I don't like the fact he's a Bengal. I think that, something bad will happen to that kid just because he's in Cincinnati. Yeah, exactly right. And yet he's still bounced back from that. He's still amazing. But I think that ownership is notoriously cheap. Like they'll sign him to a contract, but then they'll get rid of all his targets. And his line stinks. And I get concerned about that guy. Behind that line, they put some pieces around him, but he's got one of the top 3 wide receiver teams and Mixon behind him too. So from a fantasy perspective, now I can't say the word. From a fantasy perspective, if you can keep him upright, he's going to win you championships if you have it. That guy's great. What do you have? 4 touchdowns, 3 in the air, 1 on the ground last week?
Yeah. So real quick, after the Super Bowl loss last season, people were starting to get nervous and comparing him to a Dan Marino, which, again, Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best of all time, but could never get back to that big game. So real quick, do you think Cincinnati has the ability to do so if they keep this core?
No, because I go back to the owner. I think the owner's trash, and I think that he'll somehow find a way to screw it up.
Fair. All right. Well, switching from a young gun to an old man, Matt Ryan is back. He threw for 389 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, granted, he didn't have a Jonathan Taylor, so he had to throw it 58 times. Since I know you're an avid Fold in the Cheese listener, Matt Ryan was my guy last season just to follow him throughout. I think, granted, there was no Jonathan Taylor. The running game was trash. They didn't even have Naheem Hines. So he had to throw it that many times. I still think this is the Matt Ryan they were hoping for. Granted, he's not going to throw for 3-9 and 3 every game, but I think he's second in the league in passing behind Josh Allen.
What I'm happy about too is I have Pittman in a couple of leagues, and it was nice to see a Pittman resurgence. But
yes, me too.
I think Matt Ryan is eventually going to be like a governor or like a president. But right now he's just a rickety old man. I remember that picture of Len Dawson in the Super Bowl where he's sitting in a chair smoking a cigarette at halftime. That's kind of what I picture Matt Ryan doing right now in that locker room. Like, who are these guys? Where's Julio Jones? Just turning into an old man smoking a cigarette. Like, all right, I'll go back out there. But I like him a lot. But again, he's so old. He's held together with duct tape and Ben Gay. But kudos to him. Like I said, I'd like to see him keep slinging it around because I want to see Pittman do well. But If you're putting your hopes on Matt Ryan, you're a dead man.
Okay, so you're saying you're not putting your hopes on Matt Ryan. Got it.
No, I'm not.
Sorry about
Nor is your dog.
the background noise. He loves Matt Ryan. He's actually his nickname is Ember Ice. So clearly he's got ice in his veins, barking at some squirrel. So listeners, we apologize. But so kind of moving on to the wide receivers. Jamar Chase, is this his breakout game?
Man, I hope so. I like that guy quite a lot. I'm in a league where it's an auction draft, and I spent the most money on Cooper Kupp. I wanted to say Cooper Rush. I just did it. Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase. And I've been waiting for this, and I hope this is a sign of good things to come because that guy's a monster.
Yeah, I think, he obviously is a massive talent, and he had a good week one, granted when Burrow stuck, but then he's just kind of been okay. So yeah. I think this is hopefully the one where it's like, yep, he's back. Don't forget about me. This is why you drafted me in the first round. So
that's right.
7,432. Like that's pretty good. Granted, one was on the 60-yard pass, which he just created himself, but it was really good. Kind of on the same guy, Stephon Diggs, man. Holy crap. We already talked about the Bills. 10 for 148, 1 touchdown. I mean, is there a better duo than Diggs and Davis right now? I mean, you could say Chase and Higgins, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the world of that guy. Like I said, the smartest thing that Buffalo did in the offseason is give that guy more money because he was starting to become a malcontent over Twitter in the offseason. So they just quietly made sure he's paid, and there he is. He's got 656 or six touchdowns on the season. He's almost got 50 catches already. The guy's awesome.
He's good. He is good. Again, gotta go with the big names showed up this week. So Tyreek Hill, 12 for 177 with Teddy Bridgewater as the quarterback. I mean, Tua's going to play. Supposedly, you think Tyreek can still do it?
I do. If you've got 700 yards already on the season, I don't like the fact he's only got 2 touchdowns, but he's got 11 catches over 20 yards. The guy is, he is showing no downslide of leaving the best, quarterback he has ever seen. I don't care what he says on a podcast. you go from Mahomes to this group of quarterbacks in Miami and still, have 50 receptions and 700 yards at this point. I mean, you're awesome.
Yeah, true. All right, so 2 guys I want to kind of go through quickly, and maybe we'll talk about them in waivers. Are Brandon Ayuk for the Niners. He went for 8 for 83 in the 2 touchdowns of the game for the Niners. He's that lightning in the bottle for them in that loss. And Chase Claypool kind of, he went for 96 yards and a touchdown, and he was literally that go-to guy on that game-saving drive for the Steelers. These are 2 guys who, I don't know. I feel like Claypool has been going like this the past couple of years in fantasy-wise. Ayuk has just been so erratic. Do you trust either of these ones? Would you pick either of these guys up?
I would pick up Claypool over Ayuk. Only because I don't trust Shanahan's offense. He wants to take wide receivers and turn them into running backs, whereas I like what Pittsburgh is trying to do. They have a bunch of wide receivers, and they ideally, if they have a quarterback and a line that can protect that quarterback, they want to chuck it all over the yard, right? So if they could get their offensive line straightened out, I think Claypool would be more relevant.
Okay, that's fair. Moving to the running back room, your boy, I know this is kind of your guy last year, Ramondre Stevenson, finally is the full-time back, and he showed why he should be. 76 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns, had 4 receptions. I mean, this is kind of what Patriots fans are hoping for. I'm currently not, just because I had to get Damian Harris. So, yeah, I got the other one. So it's very, I mean, it's always the tough part in New England is Bill Belichick is always going to split the backfield. So it was great to see when Ramondre is really the guy, he can carry the load. So do you think when Harris comes back, is this still going to be a split backfield, or is it Ramondre's to lose, or what?
I love Stevenson, and I particularly love that touchdown link that he got because that just capped a win over our buddy Joe Nolan, and that made me super happy. I also like the fact that Bill Belichick skipped his boss's wedding so he could be sitting down in his basement trying to figure out how to use Stevenson and, beat his former team to get second all time in wins. Stevenson is going to be one of those guys that I always continue to get, and eventually, they won't sign him and he'll go off to some other team and, become the next Sony Michel. But for right now, I am going to continue to ride him because when he's in there, he's great. But to your point, they can pick up a guy off the waivers in 3 weeks, and that guy can be your starting running back. And, you just can't trust Belichick to ride out one guy, and it's just not going to happen.
You're not wrong. He will just kind of pick someone up off the street and say, "Hey, you're a running back now."
That's right.
I really kind of hope they do stick with one. And unfortunately for me, fantasy wise, I think it should be Ramondre. He just offers so many more elements because he can catch out the backfield, and it's always good when you make Joe Nolan lose. So boom.
That's right.
Of course, Christian McCaffrey, not like huge numbers, but it's a great fantasy line. 69 rush yards, 7 receptions for 89. And then we talked about where's he going. So we talked about Christian. We don't have to worry about him. All right, but here's a guy I kind of want to mention a little bit, Kenyon Drake. So we talked about J.K. Dobbins going down in Baltimore. They took Kenyon Drake from the Raiders. They picked him up. So he went for 10, 119, and 1. And the crazy thing for me is his longest run wasn't longer than, I don't think, 15 yards. So he's kind of chugging it out. Is he kind of the new go-to guy? Are you picking him up? Do you trust it?
So I had him at one point in the season, and I dropped him. I can't remember. I think I might have got the running back that's full of holes in Washington and picked him up and dropped Drake. If I'm desperate, maybe, but when you've got a running quarterback, I don't trust many of the guys that are going to be behind him. So if you're desperate, yeah, pick him up. But Lamar is the best running back on that team.
You're saying Lamar is the best running back on that team?
Without question.
Yeah. So basically, you're not trusting that running back room is kind of what I'm hearing?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, fair. And then this was kind of the question mark going into the Jets season in the beginning. Breece Hall, obviously you drafted him high. You still have Michael Carter. Obviously, in the beginning of the season, it was the Michael Carter show. Now, Breece Hall is the dude. And he had 20 for 116 and a touchdown. I mean, he's a beast, right?
I drafted low on Michael Carter, hoping that, maybe this rookie will be a clown. But, man, Breece Hall is a monster. I watched a little bit of that game on the plane over, and I wasn't listening to it. I was listening to my music on my phone, but the seat back in front of me had the game on. And, as much as I liked what I saw out of Breece Hall, what really surprised me was the Jets defense. Like, if I'm looking for a defense to pick up, that Jets defense is a terror. When they made Aaron Rodgers look really old, but Breece Hall is a monster. I think if they can keep him healthy, the Jets to me are a lot like what Cincinnati is. Like, I don't trust anybody in those teams. I think something catastrophic will happen because they're just bit. But he looks really good, and Michael Carter to me is now going to be irrelevant if Breece Hall stays healthy.
He's done. Well, Zach Finch-Wilson, he didn't really have to do too much in that game. Sauce Gardner wearing the cheese head. Alan Lazard smacked it off his head as they were going through the tunnel. It was gret. And then kind of finally, our Wake Forest product, granted he then went to Michigan State, but Kenneth Walker, now he's the lead guy in Seattle. I think everyone was clamoring to pick him up if he wasn't already on the team, and he showed why. 21 for 97 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be good, man, and that's a perfect piece for them in Seattle. Even though Geno Smith is your quarterback, although he is a top 10 fantasy quarterback right now, which is, again,
he certainly is
one taking crazy pills. Am I the only one seeing this?
Well, look at what he's got to throw to, though. You've got Lockett, and you've got Metcalf, and now with a running game behind you. I mean,
Noah Fant.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious what Drew Lock would have done in this. You never know what that guy is going to be, but to me, those guys were a coin flip, right? Drew Lock and Geno, like they're both terrible. I mean, but and I don't know much about their offensive line, but they're managing to keep him upright. And again, I love DK Metcalf. I think that guy's great. And Kenneth Walker at the beginning of the season, when he had that hernia stuff, he was a big red flag to me. I didn't want to risk even like a low round flyer on him, but now he looks like a monster.
Yeah, he does. Yikes is all I have to say. I mean, the Seahawks are probably either screwing themselves by not getting a good draft pick or just kind of surprising. Maybe they'll make the playoffs. Who knows? It'll be
right. They'll get bounced to the first round, but again, to your point, you lose out on what they really need most is a good quarterback. But maybe they'll take a page out of what the Rams did and throw all their draft picks at someone to move up.
Yeah. Well, they got all the ones from Denver, so just say.
Yeah, exactly.
Then real quick through tight ends, Mike Gesicki, he finally had the game that I was hoping for him all season. I was really high on him coming in, like not like on a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, but 9th, 10th round pick. I thought Gesicki would be a nice fit as tight end with all those different weapons. He could kind of be the safety valve for Tua. Hasn't done that this year. Kind of has been no show. But when Teddy Bridgewater came in, boom, 6 for 69, 2 touchdowns. He might be a late kind of waiver wire pickup if you're in that tight end shuffle. Also, Mark Andrews finally showed why he's been, a top 2 tight end. He's been up and down this season. The Ravens have just been so weird. Sometimes they look unbeatable, but then sometimes they just struggle so bad. And he's kind of been riding that roller coaster. And then, as we mentioned real quick, since there are no other options to throw to in Green Bay, Bob Tunyon, 10 for 90. He had 10 catches and 12 targets. So you might want to pick him up if, your tight end's on bye, if he's hurt. Who else are you going to throw to, right?
Exactly. They might be throwing the ball to the backside of the backfield or something, but for winning football in Green Bay, that's not how they win. But from a fantasy perspective, yeah, Tunyon's relevant.
Right.
But it's weird to see Andrews on this list. Andrews arguably is one of the best tight ends in the league, and anybody that drafted him was thinking otherwise. And if he's available in any league, like I'm in a 4-man league. That guy's taken, right? But
I'm not saying he's available. He actually just finally had a good game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, he did. Yeah. And I think he's awesome. You don't look at him like a Kelsey or a Kittle, but all that guy does is put up numbers.
I'm so down on Kittle, man. I used to love that guy, but he is just the past couple seasons he's just disappeared, and he's always banged up. So I'm like, I would not draft him anymore from 6th round higher. Like I wouldn't. It would have to be after the 6th round for me if he's there. And I think he was even there this season in either our league or my league with Kemper. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. I'm like, no, just he disappears and he gets hurt.
Oh, yeah.
I love him. All right. So a couple, you want to go through a couple quick waiver targets?
Sure.
What do you think, man? You think Trevor Lawrence, you think if he's still around, you picking him up?
I like Trevor Lawrence. He's young. He's got a head coach now that actually believes in him and understands offensive football. And he's got decent targets. And, I like him more than like a Mariota. I think Mariota, he showed one game. I was happy that Mariota threw a ball to Pitts. And Mariota's got the running ability. But again, do I trust Lawrence more than Mariota? It's no question. I would take Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. I'm just saying, if you're on a bye and you got a Trevor Lawrence, Marcus Mariota, I think they're a good plug and play if the right matchup is there. And Mariota has only had one game, under 17 points. So it's a good fill-in when you got people getting Carson Wentz might have a 3-point game, might have a 20-point game, or Matt Ryan had a couple 4-point games. So Mariota's been consistent, not flashy, but consistent.
Hang on, before we go there, what about putting Heineke on that list?
He is a wild card. As you talked about, he does have the weapons. Fantasy-wise, he is relevant. So would you pick him up as a flyer if your quarterback was on bye?
I would probably take him I think I would. I might take him over Lawrence. I certainly would take him over Mariota just because of the weapons factor.
Okay. But again, roller coaster. But he can blow up.
Oh, yeah.
He has shown he can blow up. What do you think about Deion Jackson as a running back in Indianapolis? I mean, JT he's banged up. He's probably going to be coming back soon, but you take a flyer on Deion with Nyheim Hines also out?
I'm looking at him. Yeah, I would take him over Drake, absolutely.
Over Kenyon Drake. Okay, so you're not – I mean, obviously you said Lamar is the guy, the running back in Baltimore, but you're not taking a flyer on Kenyon? You'd take Deion over him?
Well, again, look at the quarterbacks. Look at Lamar Jackson. Look at Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan has moved 3 feet since that game on Sunday, right? So, he's not a threat to run. He's not a threat to walk. So I would take Jackson over Drake.
Okay, fair. And then real quick, we talked about both these guys in the wide receiver notable performances. Brandon Ayuk and Chase Claypool. Which one? You said you'd take Claypool.
100%.
Okay, picking up Chase Claypool. Got it. All right, so just to give you an update, Kemper and I have our Do It bet board. Matt Ryan was my stud last year. He won it for me. So we do have an update this season. So just so you know, Jason, we're going to throw up the big board here. Okay. This year, I went with, so we did quarterback, running back, wide receiver. I went with Jared Goff. He went with Trevor Lawrence. I went with Josh Jacobs. He went with A.J. Dillon. And I went with Allen Robinson, and he went with T. Higgins. So again, just so you know, these were our ranking discrepancies in the preseason. So we wanted to see how they would do. Jared Goff was on bye, so he got me 0 points this week. Trevor Lawrence had a good game. He had a couple rushing, one through the air, so he had 26.9 points, bringing his season total to 116 to Goff's 119. So it's really heating up, but Goff did have his bye week, so kind of have a free week in there. The running back room, Josh Jacobs was on bye, so he did not get me anything. And Dylan, man, has just continued to do nothing. So this was probably one of his bigger weeks with 9 points. That brings his season total to 55, and Josh Jacobs still has about 99. So it's still a big lead there. And then the wide receiver room, Allen Robinson finally had a decent game. Granted, not like blowing up, but he had a touchdown, like 5 or 6 receptions. So he got 17 points, and T. Higgins was pretty quiet. He had 10 points. So T. Higgins has 74 points on the year. Allen Robinson is 46.
And that touchdown that Robinson had was maybe my favorite touchdown of the week, where he was in the air and spun around like a top. It was really a great wide receiver play, and I hope that's a sign of good things to come for not only him and for that team, because
I just don't get it. Allen Robinson is a great talent, and I don't know if they're just not figuring out how to use him. Obviously, Stafford has taken a step back this season, but man, he has been a huge disappointment for me. I was riding high on him in the preseason, and he is not. So quickly looking at our guys, who would you take, Goff or Lawrence? Go.
Oh, Lawrence. Yeah. I mean, as a Lions fan, Goff has a bunch of weapons, but, seeing what Belichick did to him, I mean, he just, snipped him. And I'm hoping that coming out of the bye, two things, like they're going to come back ready to go. And when you get shut out after a loss, that's a team I always want to look out for. So I think they're going to be mad. The other thing is Goff does have Jameson Williams on the horizon, hopefully soon.
True.
And so he might pick it up. But as of right now, Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. Josh Jacobs, Matt Dillon. Or Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon, all the way.
Matt Dillon every time. Josh Jacobs or AJ Dillon.
Josh Jacobs. He's playing great. I mean, he's top 5 running back right now.
He's ridiculous. And then Allen Robinson, T. Higgins.
I'm going to speculate on number 1. I think that guy, in
the long run this season, you're taking me with Allen Robinson?
Yeah, I absolutely. Wow. Because like I said, they're going into the bye, and then the mad scientist McVay is going to tinker around with his lineup, and he's going to try to find a way to get him balls, whether it's going to be jet sweeps or something weird. They're going to get that guy more involved because, he showed with that touchdown catch that, he's a talent. You just got to figure out how to get him the ball.
All right. You heard it here first. He's on my Allen Robinson train. I like it.
Yeah.
So, Jason, real quick, as we're going to end this episode, I do want to bring back one segment that we did last season, which we have not done yet, because we wanted the season to kind of progress a little bit. So we're going to do a little blind resumes. Kemper's going to be
terrible at this.
He's going to be super jealous. This is the first time this season we've done it. Again, we're going to let things settle a little bit. That's why we jumped in now. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the stat line for 2 people in the same position group, and you're going to tell me which one of these guys you would rather have. Okay. And if you want, you can try and guess who it is.
Sure.
So wide receiver A. Okay. He has 64 targets, 43 receptions for 485 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's wide receiver A. Wide receiver B has 63 targets, 39 receptions, 475 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Who you taking? Who you think it is? Maybe. What you doing?
I'm going to take the guy with 475 and 4. I think that's Jamar Chase.
So why? So you went with the guy with fewer receptions for fewer yards. Why'd you go with that guy?
Touchdowns. And the other guy, I think, is Marquise Brown, and I think that guy's missing a foot.
Wow, you nailed both of those guys.
Yes.
A was Hollywood. You're right. And B was Chase. So
awesome.
Well done.
I looked at the stats before because I was curious, and when I looked at those wide receiver stats, who's right behind Marquise Brown is Austin Eckler at 41 grabs.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, Eckler's a receiving monster. So just for comparison, Jamar Chase in our league was taken 11th, and Hollywood was taken 66th. But they are right behind each other in the point standings. But again,
is that crazy?
Hollywood will be out for a little bit. Okay. Wow. You nailed that first one. I hate you. All right. Running backs. Running back A, 104 carries for 408 yards and 5 touchdowns with 10 catches for 120 yards and no touchdowns. Running back B, 91 carries for 490 yards, 3 touchdowns, 17 catches, 129 yards, no touchdowns. Who are you taking?
I'm taking B. That sounds like the guy we just talked about. Is that Josh Jacobs?
That is Josh. God damn! Do you like study? I didn't even tell you we were doing this segment this morning, and you just study this. This is impressive. Yes, that is Josh Jacobs. Do you know who A was?
I do not.
So keep in mind they've played the same amount of games. So Hollywood and Chase played the same amount of games, and Derrick Henry and Josh
Oh,
Jacobs have played the same amount of games.
okay.
So just so you know, you were taking Josh Jacobs over Derrick Henry. Just saying.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So Josh Jacobs was picked 69th in our league. Well, Derrick Henry, my guy, was picked 6th.
Oh, wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And again, they're just right next to each other in the point standing. All right. Now we're going quarterback. Okay. And again, you are trading for whichever quarterback you pick. All right.
Okay.
Quarterback A, 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 26 carries for 125 yards and a score. Quarterback B, 1,460 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 38 carries for 233 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah.
I'm going to take A. I don't know. That second one might be Kyler, but I don't know who the first one is. So I'm going to go A.
So you're going A. So the second one was Kyler. That is quarterback B, was Kyler Murray. So you have him, and we have it in writing. You are trading for this quarterback.
Oh, shit.
1, Geno Smith.
Isn't that nuts? Oh, my
You
God.
are taking Geno Smith.
That's the craziest damn thing I've ever heard.
Y'all heard it. Binding
I did.
contract. Who's your quarterback in our league? Is it Herbert?
I believe it is. Let me double check. Yeah.
I'm going to pick up Geno, and you can trade me Herbert for him. There it is.
I'll get right on that. Jesus.
Yeah, so Kyler was picked 77th in our league, which not that high, but he was I think he was the 5th or 6th quarterback taken. And then, of course, Geno Smith, undrafted.
Of course.
He is above Kyler.
That's nuts.
Right. So that's what I love about blind resumes, because I know I fall victim to it all the time. It's the name recognition. It's of course I'm going to take this guy because it's this guy. But people like Geno Smith, Josh Jacobs, and, well, one-footed Hollywood Brown are
right.
guys. So kind of fun. But good. I'm impressed. You nailed both wide receivers, 1 running back, and 1 quarterback. Well done, my friend. That's impressive.
Thank you.
Well done. All right. Well, appreciate it, Jason. Good to have you back. We recapped all that was week 6. Week 7's coming right back up. We'll kind of go through all the pick'ems for that in our next episode. But great to have you back. 1 Tony Stark, 1 Iron Man. And so until next time, keep on folding.